Yes. Hello there, kindlings. It's, uh, it's me, Warlock the Storyteller. And here's a story for you, and no mistake. The name of this story? For all good stories must have names. Well, the name of this story is quite simply this: The Blacksmith Who Never Sat Down. Now, long ago, there was a little village. Just as there were many little villages long ago, across this green and pleasant isle. But in this one little village, there lived a blacksmith, name of Wolf, with a U mind and not an O. Blacksmith Wolf. The locals would hallo to him. Blacksmith Wolf. The village children would cry out as his hammer rang across the forest. Day and night, mind, for Wolf the blacksmith, who never sat down, hardly ever even stopped to sleep, kindlings. Now, do we know what a blacksmith smiths? Sorry, I wasn't repeating myself there. Do we know what it is that a blacksmith smiths? Well, the job of the village blacksmith could have been no more important, for it was the job of the village blacksmith to make and mend and remake anything made in the village from metal. Whether it be a dinner fork or a broad sword, the blacksmith could turn both left and right hand to the task. For he carried on his belt not one, but two hammers. For I have not one, but two hands, argued Wolf, the blacksmith who never sat down. And so the blacksmith would take it upon himself to arrange not one, but two anvils by his fireside. For he was not only a broad man, he was not only a tall man, but Wolf the blacksmith who never sat down was most especially a clever man. And so, with one eye on one hand and the other on t'other, Wolf the blacksmith who never sat down could planish you a copper plate whilst honing out a sushi knife with the other, beating a time on his anvils, the loosey-lefty and righty-tighty. That was the skill of the blacksmith, a metallurgist, if you will. And there is much science in the art of metallurgy. And where there is much science, there has always been great magic. For where do we define the two if all we knew was nothing? Wolf, the blacksmith who never sat down, had just finished making, and he had lost count at this point of how many tin dinner plates and how many spoons he had made over his long years as a village blacksmith. One morning, a fair buxom maid of, shall we say, 50-something years, although she were asleep, or though she were to slip, I should say, she may just leave a dent. But, nevertheless, long ago, it was a time when the bigger, more buxom figure of a woman was far the more desirable silhouette than a sausage skin stuffed full of matchsticks. And so this fair buxom maid cried halloo to Wolf the blacksmith who never sat down. Halloo, Wolf the blacksmith! And on she trotted on her favourite Shire horse. Blacksmith! cried the buxom maid. My Shire horse has thrown a shoe. Leave it with me, the blacksmith said, and offered up his arm to the buxom maid, who slid gracefully from the frankly huge horse's back to land deftly and delicately in a muddy puddle with a splosh. Ha ha! Laughed the blacksmith, and the buxom maid did fling herself upon his chest and curse his name for laughing at her distress. I am covered in mud, you brute wolf! It has improved the colour of your stockings, maiden, said Wolf the blacksmith who never sat down. Leave your Shire horse's shoes with me, and I shall have him reshod for thee in time for tea. And with that the buxom maid off did trot in to the marketplace. Now the blacksmith who never sat down stopped for a moment then to think. How best to reshoe this fine animal? Would it take one replacement horseshoe? Or did such a beast deserve a full set of 4? This was his thinking. But the blacksmith, who never sat down, would not have to make the horseshoes, although he did and would, and had he time, should and could have tailor-made this very horse's own pair of shoes. But at a glance, and like a shop fitter, a shoe maker, the blacksmith, man of many talents, jack of all trades, and yet master also of not one, sized up the Shire horse then from the top knot of his mane to the very tip of his buxom tail. You, sire, Shire horse, are a size. And the blacksmith, who never sat down, produced not one new shoe, but 3 more, and 1 makes 4. Give me a minute, boy. And he patted the horse then upon his high flank and shoulder, firmly, with 1 heavy pat. Boom! The Shire horse then was reassured. He had come to the right place, for his hoof did ache so. Such was the effect of all these wobbly cobbles on his feet. And within the hour, the blacksmith had reshod the Shire horse, and true to his word, had him ready all before his tea, which was hot and sweet and very much poured from a black copper kettle. Aye, said Wolf, the blacksmith, who never sat down. Tea breaks over, and without having sat down, for one day in his life it seemed, Wolf returned to his forge. A wolf! Came the buxom maid's cry, and the ears of our trusty Shire horse did prick up. As he tap danced out a rhythm with his new and not so aching feet. For horses are very good at keeping a rhythm. It helps them run so fast. My lady, your horse is ready to bear thee once again. And with this, the buxom maid face did light, and she leapt, hop, skip, jumped even, and leapt into the blacksmith's arms, who hoisted her to his chest and flung her on her horse. For Wolf, the blacksmith who never sat down, was 7 foot with no shoes. And a very clever man. What do I owe you, Wolf the blacksmith? Just one more smile from thee, my love, and we can both be on our way. What more could she say, but beamed him a beamer that he then beamed back. And off she did trot along her merry way. Wolf the blacksmith returned to his forge, as I said, to his next project, and some supper, and quickly to bed, and up on his feet to tend to the fire. For all through the night he made weapons of war. For during the day, Wolf, the blacksmith who never sat down for a reason. Wolf, the blacksmith, had to be every man to every other man in the village. Wolf, the blacksmith who never sat down, had to be every man to every other woman in the village. And so, by day, Wolf, the blacksmith, mended zips and unbent forks and reforged spoons and fitted toe caps to shoes that the cobbler brought. He might mend a pan, someone might bring a pot. This was Wolf, the blacksmith who never sat down's day job, but he worked tirelessly through the night making weapons of war, for he knew he could never sit down. And that's just the beginning of the tale of Wolf, the blacksmith who never sat down. Will we meet him again, I wonder? I do hope so. And remember, kindlings, always call tale. Do your best.